Hello everyone and welcome to Star Wars on High. Thank you for stopping by. We are back with another Legends book review. We got a really great turnout for our previous review on Path of Destruction, so today we're continuing forward with Rule of Two by Drew Karpyshyn. And as a reminder, this review will contain spoilers, so if you have not read the book and don't want it ruined, you should definitely read the book, then come back to our review. And again, if you have a Legends book that you'd like us to review next, leave a comment and let us know which one you'd like to hear about. Right off the bat, I don't like the way this book opens, only because I like some time jumps between stories. This book picks up as if it's the next page after Path of Destruction. I don't know what it is about the concept, but I just don't like it. Maybe it's because it feels like a continuation of Book 2, which doesn't make a lot of sense because Book 2 is a continuation, but I digress. Regardless of when it takes place, the opening is still really good and really freaky. The prologue opens up with Daveret, a failed Jedi Padawan wandering through the cavern where the thought bomb was detonated, asking himself why it was that he survived. How was he still alive? He comes across this strange orb floating in the center of the main chamber. His curiosity gets the better of him as he touches the orb and is immediately met with dread as the thoughts and emotions of everyone who perished in the bomb's explosion runs through his mind, hearing them as loud as if they were all standing in the room with him. On the surface of Ruusan, not much is left. The entire planet has been left in ruin after the war between the Jedi and Sith. Darth Bane, having survived the thought bomb, is now plagued with the illusions of Sith masters that died in the explosion, but he refuses to let it stop him from training his new apprentice Rain, who has been given the name Zannah. He begins her training by making her relive the thoughts of her friend's death, Law, the bouncer who was killed by mistake. Bane wants Zannah to use her memories to channel her emotions and use them to her advantage. As they make their way through Ruusan, Bane takes Zannah back to the now abandoned Sith camp, only to find it being raided by mercenaries. Bane steps in, killing all but two, allowing them to escape, wanting them to spread rumors that the Sith were still alive. While searching the camp, Bane comes across an interesting artifact in Cortis's old tent, a manuscript leading to the location of the tomb of the legendary Sith Lord Freedon Nad. Before leaving on this quest, Bane takes Zannah into the cavern to show her the result of the thought bomb when they come across Daveret. Daveret happens to be Zannah's cousin and sees Bane as a threat and believes that he is holding Zannah as a hostage. But in a failed attempt to rescue her, Zannah steps in, using the Force to crush Daveret's hand as a way to save him, as she knew that Bane would kill him instantly. Zannah convinces Bane that Daveret's death would serve no purpose, and instead they leave him to wander the cavern. Bane informs Zannah that he is leaving for Duxon, the moon of Onderon, to find Freedon Nad's tomb. But Zannah must find her own way off-world, and her own way to meet Bane on Duxton in 10 days, thus starting her first lesson. Hearing the story from two mercenaries that the Sith survived the battle, former Padawan to General Hoth, Jahun Othon, believes the story to be true, and rushes to Jedi Master Valenthyne Farfalla in hopes of convincing him of the story. But Valenthyne believes that it is not possible. The Sith had been defeated, and right now the Jedi needed to focus on rebuilding. Valenthyne then makes Jahun his new apprentice as they return to Coruscant to meet with the Supreme Chancellor. While the Jedi make their way to Coruscant, Zannah manages to find a Republic shuttle and hopes to convince them to take her to Onderon, saying that she has family there. But when one of the younger boys notices Zannah steal a blaster, the plan goes awry, causing her to shoot everyone aboard the shuttle and plots her course to Onderon herself. Meanwhile, Bane is well on his way to Duxon when the visions of Lord Cortis and Lord Khan begin to plague him. Bane uses the Force in hopes of getting the visions to dissipate, but in the process damages the ship, causing him to crash land. Bane makes his way from the wreckage to the tomb of Freedon Nad, where he discovers the treasure he was after, the holocron of Freedon Nad. Bane thinks his journey to be complete when he is suddenly attacked by massive parasites known as orbalisks. Bane manages to get out of the tomb, but not before two orbalisks latch onto him, and no matter what tactic he used, Bane could not remove them from his body. He learns from Freedon Nad's holocron that these orbalisks feed off of dark side power, and they cannot be killed by any weapons that the Sith possess. And if the victim somehow managed to kill one of the orbalisks, it would release a toxin that would kill its victim in just a matter of days. Knowing he is stuck for the time being, Bane uses the Force to manipulate a Drexel, a flying creature native to Duxon, and uses it to fly off the moon, through space, and over to Onderon, where he finds that Zannah also managed to find her way to Onderon, but is about to be attacked by Onderon Beast Riders. Bane steps in, killing the riders, and leaves with Zannah in her newly acquired shuttle. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, the Galactic Senate passes the Ruusan Reformation, disbanding the Army of Light and demilitarizing the Republic, in hopes that these actions would no longer be needed now that the Sith threat had been defeated. The Jedi relinquished their titles of Jedi Lord and Jedi General, and in doing so, Master Falfala assigned Jahun to the Chancellor's personal guard and promoted him to Jedi Knight. We then jump ahead 10 years. Zannah has grown up and has been training in the rare arts of Sith sorcery, which she had to learn on her own as Bane's knowledge in the field was limited. But her training has left her as a very terrifying foe, so Bane sends her on a mission to the planet of Serrano, where a separatist movement is growing. Zannah's orders are to add fuel to the fire, basically, and make things worse, so she befriends and seduces a Twi'lek, Kaladin, second in command to the separatist movement, and with her influence, the group decides to kidnap the former Chancellor Valorum. With her work in place, Zannah returns to Bane's home, where she finds that Bane had attempted to create his own holocron and failed, destroying the camp out of rage. Zannah is now feeling conflicted about her involvement with Bane. She's not sure if the Obelisks are helping him or killing him, and her newfound attraction for the Twi'lek Kel is starting to cloud her judgment. Zannah, however, is later informed that the kidnapping of Chancellor Valorum did not go as planned, as his Jedi guards were able to defeat the kidnappers, including Kel. Zannah leaves to meet with the Separatist and learns that one of the members, Hetton, had been trained in the dark side and asks to become Zannah's apprentice and shows her a library he has filled with Sith artifacts, and tells her of his first master's stronghold on the planet of Tython. Thinking this could be her way to power, Zannah takes Hetton and 8 Umbaran shadow assassins back to take out Bane. But thinking that numbers would overwhelm Bane was a foolish line of thought, as Bane cuts them all down with ease before turning on Zannah. Zannah is able to hold off Bane's attack and tells him of the location of the answer to building a holocron. Bane decides to take this information and heads for Tython, and gives Zannah a new mission: infiltrate the Jedi Temple and look for any information on removing obelisks in the temple archives. Zannah handles this with ease, as she uses her Sith sorcery to mask her presence. While they head off in separate directions, Valorum asks the Senate to build a memorial on Ruusan to the Jedi who gave their lives for the Republic, and construction quickly begins. However, Zannah's cousin Davrit has spent the last 10 years on Ruusan as a healer, and is angered by the new construction and attempts to sabotage it. Jedi Knight Jahun manages to track down Davrit and stops him from causing any more problems. Jahun learns who Davrit is and how his hand was destroyed, and takes him back to Coruscant to meet with the Jedi about the newly found information about Zannah and Bane. Jahun leaves Davrit in the temple archives, where he runs into Zannah, and when she learns of Davrit's betrayal by telling all of the information he knew to the Jedi, Zannah kidnaps Davrit and heads to Tython to warn her master. Meanwhile, Jedi Master Falfala now believes Jahun after hearing the testimony, and puts together a Jedi task force to head to Tython and defeat the Sith once and for all. On Tython, Bane had finally learned how to create a proper holocron thanks to the teachings of Hetton's master. But he is interrupted when Zannah arrives, telling him of what has happened. And before they can leave the planet, the Jedi arrive, leaving them with no alternative but to fight their way out of the temple. Farfalla, Jahun, and the rest of the Jedi are slain, but at the cost of Bane getting a potentially fatal injury to an exposed part of his body where the obelisks had not been, and also had his force lightning directed back at him, and some of the obelisks on him managed to die, leaving Bane in a severe state. Zannah takes both Bane and Davrit to Ambria to find Caleb, the healer who saved Bane before, and threatens him with death if he does not help Bane again. Only this time, Caleb has nothing to fear. Caleb sent his daughter away years ago, so there would be nothing to convince Caleb to heal anyone. Caleb sent his daughter away years ago so that if the day may come where Bane returned, he would have nothing to leverage against Caleb. Davrit, however, is able to convince Caleb of healing Bane, with the condition that Zannah sabotage their own ship and send a message to the Jedi revealing Bane's location. After agreeing and doing so, Caleb removes the obelisk from Bane and heals his injuries. With the Jedi on their way, Zannah kills Caleb and uses the Force to break Davrit's mind, making him go crazy, running out of the shelter with Farfalla's lightsaber in hand, attacking the Jedi. Davrit is killed and the Jedi believe him to be the Sith Lord that survived, deeming now that the Sith threat has been eliminated. They leave Ambria, unaware that Zannah and Bane were hiding in a pit under the shelter, being masked by Zannah's sorcery. After leaving the pit, Zannah explains to Bane that she didn't kill him because she still has much to learn from him, and Bane seems to have underestimated just how strong of an apprentice he has, ending the Rule of Two. This book, just like Path of Destruction, is such a heavy read. There's so much story that happens, and while it is long, it's still very fast-paced. I remember reading this book for the first time years ago, and I got through the whole thing in 2 days, which at the time was my personal record. While it does a great job of continuing where the first book ended, I find it lacking in its story. Path of Destruction was a fantastic book, and the Rule of Two is as well, but I don't think it holds up to the original. My one big negative takeaway from this book is the Orbalisks. I don't like the idea of them, and the fact that most of the book revolved around him being encapsulated by them is just strange to me. Now, I was very familiar with this famous image of Darth Bane that a lot of people know, and I had no idea why he looked like that. The context from this book makes me like the image more now that I understand why it exists, but I still just think it was a weird addition to the story. I think the added screen time with the Jedi was great and really helped drive the story forward, almost into a murder mystery feel as you have Jahun constantly trying to convince the Jedi that the Sith are still active and no one else wanting to believe him. It's a common story trope that I'm very fond of. I also really love the character of Valentine Farfalla. The entire time I read the book, I could only picture Gilderoy Lockhart from the Chamber of Secrets, because he just gave off a lot of those same vibes. And it made me really enjoy the character. But again, this is a dark side story, so the good guys don't win. Growing up my entire life loving the Jedi, it's hard to read a book about the Sith and not feel conflicted when reading about who you know to be as the real heroes are cut down and the Sith ultimately coming up as the victors. It's just so different than what we're used to seeing in Star Wars storytelling, so I really was not prepared for it. One of the coolest takeaways from this story, though, is that the book was written in only 5 months. Path of Destruction was going to be the only book for Darth Bane, and the next book released was meant to be Darth Plagueis by James Luceno. But Del Rey felt that they could squeeze in another story, and as a result, we got the Rule of Two. Unfortunately, due to its time frame, the cover art suffered as John Van Fleet was hired to quickly make art for the book's release. That's why you see this really weird image with Bane holding Qui-Gon's lightsaber and Zannah holding Maul's, and the art itself is just very weird. But the original cover art artist Jude Palinsar was able to create the cover that matches the other 2 books for the Chinese release of Rule of Two. It's just a shame that we never got to see it with the US release, but it does at least exist. Overall, Rule of Two is not my favorite Legends story by far, but it is still important in showing Bane's story and the continuation and development of the Rule of Two, as we will see it come full circle in the final book, Dynasty of Evil. But what are your thoughts on the Rule of Two? Do you like it more than Path of Destruction? What are some of the memories you have from reading the book? And let me know your thoughts on the Orbalisk down in the comments below. Again, be sure to subscribe to keep up with more Legends reviews, as our review of Dynasty of Evil will be coming out soon. And as always, thank you to everyone who stuck around to this point in the video, and we hope to see you again very soon.